Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Petaluma Progressives, for hosting this event. So many important issues before us these days. We've got the NSA, we've got TPP, we've got GMO. I'm sorry to say I'm here with ELE. Anybody know what ELE stands for? End of Life Event. I'm not saying it's there yet, but we can help make it not be that. I'm part of FukushimaResponse.org, and we've been working for almost 2 years now trying to inform people about what is happening in northeastern Japan. I'm going to do a little show and tell here, and I've got notes because it's kind of daunting to try to explain Fukushima in 10 minutes. So, the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant disaster began with the earthquake and tsunami on March 11th, 2011. That was 2 years, 6 months, and 4 days ago. So we're in day 952 of this ongoing disaster. An immense amount of radiation was spewed in the first few weeks. Reactor 1 exploded on Saturday, March 12th. Reactor 2 blew up on March 14th. Reactor 3 on March 14th as well, but late. And that knocked out pipes that went to Unit 4. Now, Unit 4 was, the reactor vessel was empty. They were doing some maintenance. They had crammed all the fuel rods into a storage pool with the spent fuel rods. That now is teetering on the top of a building 100 feet off the ground.
Less weight. Get rid of that roof.
And the roof was blown off. So what we're talking about now are the cores. The cores in these reactors, they have enough nuclear material to equal the radiation that was ejected from 1,000 Hiroshima bombs. These cores have melted through the containment vessels. They are now in a liquid form, what we call corium. They're about 100 tons each. There's 3 of these lumps of very dangerous stuff underneath the plant. It is interacting with the water. Now, what happens with the water? TEPCO told us that everything was fine. It was in cold shutdown. That means it was all turned off. And for 2 years, the media pressed that information on us. The Japanese government, their solution was to raise the so-called levels of radiation exposure. And our government, by the way, has done the same thing. There's approximately 2 million people still living in highly contaminated areas in Fukushima Prefecture, areas so radioactive that similar areas in Chernobyl were evacuated immediately. TEPCO has also taken a position of refusing international help. And they could get away with that because the international nuclear industry didn't want that to happen either. So they built covers for the destroyed reactors, some of which they've never been able to go back into, and they've covered the spent fuel pool in Unit 4. They began pouring water into the destroyed site to keep it from blowing up again, while the news media told us that everything was stable. I've heard that 400 tons of cooling water go into the site every day, and 1,000 tons of groundwater flow through the ravine where the plant is built. Now, all this should not go into the ocean, so they started storing this in tanks on the hill back up behind the reactors. When the tanks started filling up and leaking, they built a wall between the reactors and the ocean. But imagine their surprise. The water just built up and topped the wall. This started about a couple weeks ago. TEPCO has also admitted that 300 tons of this contaminated water was leaking into the ocean every day since March 11th. That would be 270,000 tons of radioactive water going into the Pacific. That is, if the numbers that TEPCO is giving us are accurate. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but basically you have your reactor with the core that is melted through, and is now in the groundwater. You pour water on the top, the groundwater comes in, it fills up here, it accumulates, goes over the wall and into the ocean. So we have 300-ton lumps of incredibly dangerous stuff, and it's going to be dangerous for a very, very long time. Uh-oh. I'm being tested. No one on the planet knows how to put these fires out. That's another problem. We're looking at technology that doesn't exist. We need to find. This picture is a little bit more alarming. I think if you can see this, this is from Japanese television on Friday. They're quantifying the levels of tritium. On Tuesday, it was 64,000 becquerels per liter. Now, a becquerel is defined as a decaying nucleus per second. One nucleus decays per second. Now, you've got 64,000 decays a second on Tuesday. You've got 97,000 on Wednesday. And on Thursday, it jumped to 130,000 becquerels per second. Now, if you do the math on that, and you consider the time frame we're talking about here, these are pretty serious numbers. But the jump, the rise that we can see here, that indicates that these cores that have turned into corium have entered into criticality. And criticality, that is ongoing, uncontrolled nuclear reactions. We have what I've heard called slow motion atom bombs going off every day. So we have 2 years wasted while TEPCO and the government pretended that this would blow over. And blow over is what it's going to do. And we on the West Coast are going to be the first to find out what that means. I'm sure you've heard reassuring opinions that the Pacific Ocean is big enough to accommodate this, that it will dilute it. There's something very dishonest about that opinion. It doesn't take into account the time frame we're talking about. What does that mean? I think I should show you this picture. This is a computer-generated simulation of contamination of cesium in the Pacific, starting at Fukushima and drifting with the currents. This was updated in March of 2012. It shows that the cesium is out near Hawaii, and recent studies estimate that it will be off our coasts in about another year. And people will tell you that it will be diluted, it won't be a danger. That may actually have been true if you take the fact that this initial release in March of 2011 is all that we're talking about. But what we have here is contamination that has been pumping into the ocean every day since, and every day for a couple hundred years ahead of us. We live on a round planet. It's a closed system. It's not going to escape. It's going to fill the ocean. And it doesn't just have cesium. It has strontium, which gets into our bones. Now, there's a scientist I respect, Ken Buesler of Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, and he's been quoted a lot lately saying that with the dilution factored in, this plume may not be all that devastating, and that we can still eat fish. But then he adds, for now, because he knows that this is an ongoing problem. It's a steady inflow that will fill up the ocean. So, have I depressed you yet? What can we do about this? Well, I am trying to tell the truth as far as I can research it. We need to, well, let me just tell you this, my story is, I started following this on day one. I got educated to how corporations treat energy and the people with BP, and we all saw them pour Corexit on their problem to cut their liability. That Corexit made the situation a lot worse. The ecological devastation was augmented. So when the reactors blew up in March, I knew exactly the scenario that they were going to play, and I became very concerned. Around Christmas, I started going crazy because it was like being in a dinner party with this ongoing problem in the kitchen. Somebody's on the floor bleeding to death, and the party's going on. Nobody wants to stop the party. Early in 2012, Senator Ron Wyden went to Fukushima and returned shaken to the core. He tried to get an international effort, a response generated to bring the people of the world together to solve this problem. And that really lifted my hearts, because if you can imagine what that would have been like, all the problems we're talking about today, we put them aside, we come together, and we try to put out these fires. That didn't happen. But what did happen is I started working with other people, and that was what saved my sanity. Working with other people, you can't chew on this alone. We have a group now of about 20 dedicated people. We've been meeting twice a month for almost 2 years. FukushimaResponse.org. Last summer, we hosted Japanese guest speakers. We've shown movies, we table, we do graphics. We've remodeled our website. And this year, we are trying to break the media sound barrier. We've got an event planned for San Francisco on October 19th. We want to get 2,000 people on the beach to do a human mural. And we need your help. We've only got about 200 people signed up, and it's a month away. So spread the word. We have a table in the back. We have flyers with the website on. We have a website called FukushimaIsHere.info. There's a sign-up sheet that you're coming. Now this message, it took us a while to get the message, but where we really started was with the ocean, with the saying, one ocean, one chance. Now, the ocean is the amniotic fluid of all life on the planet. The ocean is a sacred force. It has its own power, and it's in trouble. We need to help the ocean, and the ocean will help us, I think. That we need to get out there and get people talking about this, because the media, the industry, the governments have not wanted us to take this to the next level and realize the threat that Fukushima represents to life everywhere. Now, you know that nuclear power isn't just the energy that generates the electricity for your lights, it's also bombs and geopolitical power. So there's a security state issue here that is also interested, doesn't want this to be known, because if you admit the danger that Fukushima represented, and that I think was clear in March of 2011, then that whole game starts to fall apart. And that was what really motivated me. I thought, well, here we had that meteor 10 miles from the planet Earth, and we're all going to get together and get out there and try to do something about it. It didn't happen. Things have gotten a lot worse lately. You saw the levels of tritium. Now, tritium is coming from criticalities. Those cores are hot and alive, or deadly actions. So come to the beach, spread the word, lobby your officials. The elected officials right now are the target for FukushimaResponse.org. We met with Jared Huffman's office, with Jared Huffman and his district director a couple of weeks ago. So another group met with Barbara Boxer. We have to demand testing. That's a good thing to start with. We want to know what's in our fish, what's in our milk, what's in our air, what's in our water. That can only be done by testing, and what we're talking about now are not solutions. I don't know if we have a solution to this. We've wasted 2 years. We're talking about mitigation, what kind of foods you can eat that will help you build up your resistance. And we have to shut them all down. And the Japanese have a way of saying that. It's called Saikado Hantai, which actually means don't restart. Now, Japan shut all their reactors down after this accident. And they were going to leave them off. But America set a contingent that said, no, you can't. We need those reactors. You need those reactors. You're part of our military umbrella, and we need you to play the game. So they restarted. There were 2 that restarted. Now, one of them just shut down. So we're on the right path. But there are a lot of people in Japan in harm's way, and we're in harm's way too. The time frame is what we need to really grasp. This is not something that's going to hit our beaches and suddenly everybody's going to fall over. This is going to go through generations. You're going to see mutations. You're going to see deformed babies. You're going to see a contamination of our gene pool and our food stream. We have to mobilize now to bring this to the attention that it deserves and demand that we get some testing, some action, some awareness. Again, please come to the beach. It's 11 o'clock on Saturday, October 19th. Please come to our booth in the back. You'll get a flyer. We've got plenty of them. I think they were going to be handed out. There's a website on there. Please sign up. I think it'll be good for you because you will be with other people who know, and carrying this knowledge is a challenge. And carrying it with compassion, which is what it all boils down to. Kindness to all beings. We can see that the industry is not interested in that. They've proved that over and again. The governments have downplayed this because to evacuate Tokyo is beyond their means. They're going to pretend that they're going to have the Olympics in 2020 in Tokyo. 7 years is a long time. I'm hoping we get to Christmas, frankly, folks. So, please, Saikido Hantai.